So for the last few weeks I've been looking at trying to rebuild this Apple IIe motherboard, and when I picked it up, I got it from a scrapper who was salvaging a bunch of stuff from a bunch of barns on an old farm, and he found the Apple IIe set in a barn. And I got it from him for $50, and it had the base unit, the duodisk, and the monitor. And the monitor worked right away, which was kind of neat. But when I opened up the Apple IIe, I discovered there was a bunch of there we go. I discovered there was a bunch of inhabitants already in it. There's a slideshow running. It'll come up with a few of those pictures here in just a bit. But when I opened up the Apple IIe, I discovered that it had a whole bunch of mud daubers, which are sort of non-aggressive wasps. They're wasps, but they're not nearly as nasty as the paper wasps that are known to be pretty aggressive, pretty mean. And there you can see in the pictures, there's some of the things that I found. These big, ugly, nasty nests made of mud, which turned out, I figured this thing was a lost cause, but as I started knocking the nests off with a screwdriver and then just kind of washing it down lightly with some water, it turns out that the motherboard underneath was intact. There was no damage to the traces or anything. If you take on the jacks, there's some corrosion that you would expect for having been several years in it, but there's just nothing to complain about as far as this board is concerned. Looks like I missed a couple spots in mud. Oh boy. In any case, I just I don't see any issues with this. Be able to get this up and running. One issue I did have though was that the power supply was completely shot. So from Reactive Micro, I have to think carefully what the name of that company is, but I bought a replacement PSU, and I pulled the old one out. When I turned this one on, it would click, and then the voltages would just kind of jump all over the place. So it would never actually reach 5 volts on the 5-volt output. I looked online. I think they call that the click of death. Some people say it's really hard to troubleshoot. Others say, no, you just have to replace the output caps. I've gone over this, and I don't see, and it doesn't mean anything, of course, but I really don't see any visible damage to the capacitors. Nothing, or any indication that any of the caps have failed. But again, of course, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. So I don't know. I might be inclined someday to try to get that up and running again, especially if I come across another Apple that needs a power supply. But excuse me. But in the meantime, I put a new one in and rebuilt it. Rebuilt the power supply. Put the case back together. Excuse me. And then tested this, and everything looks right. So now really the only task left is to put the motherboard back together. So that's what this is all about. So that's basically what I'm going to spend the next half hour or so doing, I guess. Kind of the nice thing, so many of these ICs were socketed by default from the factory. I really got to admit, I like how Apple put their computers together. And it's pretty clearly marked. I didn't even need to worry about marking locations or anything like that when I took this apart, because all I have to do is find the name of the chip on the board. So here's the Pro chip. That goes right there. That would feel like it seated right, and it didn't. Let's try that again. My capacitor's too much there. There we go. There, that seems to be better. Yep. Nope. Boy. There we go. That went in. And 154. Maybe we can get rid of those. Oh, hey, Mark. I can see you in chat. Try to remember to look at the screen every once in a while. I know the sound is kind of wonky. Little iPhone 5S and everything. I'm basically streaming over Wi-Fi to my computer, and then that's streaming over Wi-Fi to the internet. So there's no doubt a little bit of lag in my video stream. 154. And I did check the pictures. I did check my reference pictures. All the chips are oriented the same way, text facing me, so I don't have to worry about getting anything backwards. Oh, it's the 6502. So here's the CPU, 6502B. 6502, if you don't know, is really a pretty amazing device. Carefully, carefully, carefully. Yep, good. The guy that invented it, the guy that designed it, just died. Chuck Peddle. He died just a couple months ago, maybe. I don't remember. Anyway, when that thing came out in mid-70s, the only other options were Motorola and Intel. And the 6502, I want to say it was 6 times cheaper. I looked up the Wikipedia on this just before I started doing this. I want to say it's priced about 6 times cheaper than the options that Intel or Motorola had offered. Another popular 8-bit microprocessor at the time was the Zilog 80, or the Z80. But the 6502, that's 251. 251 right there. The 6502 was the go-to processor for pretty much most every consumer grade device in the late 70s and early to mid 80s. Apple, Atari, Commodore, the Nintendo, the original NES used the 6502. It's a pretty amazing chip. It made a lot of things possible. This is S10. It made a lot of stuff possible that just couldn't have happened otherwise. Kind of interesting at that point. If you, in the 70s, if you wanted any sort of 244, if you wanted any sort of computing device, your options were basically a desktop calculator, something like that, or a Pong machine, and that was pretty much it. Integrated circuits, ICs, were sort of a result of the space program. And in the early 70s, it started doing, or late 60s, it started doing VLSI, or very large scale integration. And as a result of that, desktop calculators came into existence. And Texas Instruments started making serious money. So the 70s were pretty much dominated. The hot tech in the 70s was pretty much pocket and desktop calculators. And you had just like a ton of calculator manufacturers on the market selling their calculators. Problem is everybody, this is the keyboard ROM, everybody relied on Texas Instruments to source the chips. So when TI decided to get into the retail business, start selling their own calculators in the middle 70s or so, of course they'd sell themselves their own chips a lot cheaper than they'd sell them to anyone else, which means they were going to undercut all of the competition real fast. So everybody started running scared and looking for other markets. And as a result, we saw a ton of computers and console systems. Not entirely a result of that, but that was certainly one of the factors that created the interest in console and desktop systems. Commodore 64, which is the most popular selling desktop computer of all time. Commodore was a calculator company. The TI sent packing, and because I think Moss was their fab plant, so they had that's SO2. So they had easy access to the 6502 to building their own CPUs. So I think that really helped them. 134. That really helped them develop their PC market, computer market. Anyway, I'm not really that much of a historian, just interesting to me. 135. It's kind of funny, I laughed as I was looking at the labels here. There's the CD-ROM, and 2E wasn't that far ahead of its time, because right next to it is the EF ROM, and then the keyboard ROM, and then there's the video ROM. So there's a number of ROM chips on here, obviously. That kind of made me chuckle when I saw CD-ROM. 109. That's 109. Where does 109 go? There it is. Very carefully. We're in? We're in. I haven't reversed any chips. O10. Stick that in there. Like so. No 2O. Zero 70. 341070. Why do I not see that? That must be the HAL chip. That's what that is. That's HAL, isn't it? Yep. There we go. Stick in the HAL chip. Hopefully when I turn this on, it won't try to throw me out the nearest airlock. Let's see. Seven 4166. Well, I get memory chip, I'm not sure. Oops. These are memory chips, the dash 15 on them. 347. 374, right? 374. Okay. Then 133. Which I think is the video ROM. It is. What's this? Memory? Memory. Okay. And memory again. Where's that? LS 125. Oh, sure enough, 166, right? Now I see it. I think that's what that is. 245, right there. Okay. Oh, I don't wanna. And then 244, right there. It's going pretty quick, actually. Just about done. 3 more chips. Empty bag. 3 more chips. And this is 125. Sure enough. Oh boy, look at that. I got one that's a little bit cockeyed. Got a few that are. That's seated. There we go. There we go. Those look okay. All right, 2 more chips. 2 more chips, and let's see what happens. $166. All right, that's it. Let's see what happens. Never bothered putting my keyboard back together, but I don't need to for what I'm going to do here. Put the speaker up just in case we get to hear a beep. Set the keyboard, plug it in right here. And power supply right here. again. Let's make some smoke. I really would be surprised if this doesn't smoke. We'll see. Whoa! Holy cow! Power beep. Ooh. All right, this is pretty cool. Let's see if we get this hooked up to a TV. In fact, the original monitor worked. Let's see if we can make that work. Oh, this is too cool. I didn't think it would work. I thought I'd make a lot of smoke. Get my wife mad at me. Hang on a second here. Limited space, I gotta make room. I totally got a beep. That's so awesome. Alright, where did my... I've got a composite cable here somewhere. Where's my composite cable? I had it a little bit ago. Let's see if I got a spare. I know I got a spare. Okay. Red. Take the phone down. Oh my gosh, I see it. Oh, look at that. It works. It totally works. This is amazing. All right. So I now have a functioning Apple IIe. Mud daubers be darned. Who needs them? Awesome. All right. See you later.